Hello, all of you and 387 Virtual Land. This is your next edition of 387 Virtual. I hope that you enjoyed doing the items that start with A project. I've really enjoyed looking through them, and I can see the progress that you guys are making in being more creative and thinking a little bit more outside the box to come up with innovations that are entrepreneurial opportunities. This is a fun part of the class, and we start thinking of different and crazy things and realize that it's not as crazy as you originally thought. And we start to see that the best innovations come from just brainstorming and being super creative. I look forward to compiling the information that you guys sent to me to see how you rated each other, and I will get that out to you as soon as possible. We have a lot to talk about today. We're moving on, and we're moving on quickly. So once we get to this part in the semester, it's time to really pick up the pace, and we start doing a lot of projects, a lot of pitches. So you're going to get yet another project today. You will notice that I've already posted the instructions on ginasimpson.online for you to read, and I've also put a list of products on there, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. What I want to do now, though, is introduce another concept to you, something that is really important. I want you to pay great attention to this concept, and I want you to internalize this concept. Because today we move to the information that is under the tab for Info for Exam 4. And today I introduce to you a concept called design think. In class, I was a little bit alarmed to hear that this was the first exposure that most of you have had to the concept of design think. This is becoming a very prominent mindset and tool within the corporate world today. This is something that you need to incorporate, you need to learn to use, and it is going to help you greatly in the business context and in your careers. So design think is a very analytical process for how you move through idea creation to implementation. And you guys know a lot more about design think than you already know. We just haven't talked about it in terms of design think. So what I want to do now is I'm going to share screen with you. I'm going to get to my whiteboard, which is digital, and talk to you about a few things. We'll review, and I'm going to show you how this all links and how you know a little bit more about design think than you realize. So now I hope that all of you are seeing my digital whiteboard. I'm still not really good at writing on it, so bear with me. I want to go back here and let's review just a little bit. Now, we've talked about the business canvas quite a bit, and this is just a little mini version of the business canvas. And at this point, you are doing a really good job of understanding value propositions, which is our statement written for the customer that tells the customer why they should choose our product over anyone else's. We also know quite a bit about choosing our customer segments. Now, if you'll remember from 3D6, when we choose our customer segments, we need to be very specific. So this is where we start with the business canvas. But before we can ever make it to the business canvas, we have to go through the whole process of making an observation, using our entrepreneurial awareness, and seeing that some things are going on that might present an opportunity for us. Once we see that observation, then we have to spend quite a bit of time to define the problem. And in all of that, we talk about using empathy. Now, empathy is a skill that you must develop. Empathy is not something that everyone is born with. It is a learned skill, and the people who are good at it practice it. Empathy here, and we're going to see, I'm going to bring this over to you, and we'll go ahead and start talking about the design think process, is also the first step of the design process. And what we have to do here is let's just go back and let's think about things that we've done in 3D6. There is an observation. Oops, I told you guys I'm not really good at this yet. So there's an observation. Let's think to the project you just did. The observation was people are not able to enjoy the traditional tailgate as usual because of the COVID restrictions. That's just an observation. We have to dig deeper and we have to use empathy to find out what problems this is really causing. And what that means is diving into the people who are a part of this observation. How does this all make them feel? The big word here for empathy is feel. And there are going to be some different customer segments associated with that, right? They're going to be students who usually tailgate. There's going to be alumni that usually tailgate. Perhaps there's even corporations and businesses that host tailgates for their customers. So we can see already that there are different customer segments that are affected by this observation. Now we have to think about which of these customer segments we want to address. So if we're going to address students, then we can think about and use empathy. How do the students really feel? They feel lonely. They feel sad. They feel disappointed, frustrated. They feel like something's been stolen from them, like they've been cheated. You see, when we really start thinking about the way that the students feel, and we start articulating that, then it's much easier for us to come up with creations to solve how they feel than it is to come up with ideas to solve an observation. If we try to solve an observation, then typically we can't come up with a really good entrepreneurial opportunity. Now remember, entrepreneurial opportunities have to have 4 components. They have to be attractive, timely, durable, and valuable. If we only try to solve the observation of the lack of tailgates, then we probably are not going to create something that is durable or that lasts, because hopefully this is the only football season we have to deal with that. So if you make something that solves it for this season, then you don't have a business next season. So stop trying to solve the observation and start practicing empathy. Other ways that you can practice empathy are just by looking around. Look around and in any given example, stop and look at the people around you and say, I wonder what they're thinking and feeling because of what's happening right now. And that what's happening right now can be anything. It can be, I wonder what the football players are thinking or feeling because Coach Saban has COVID. I wonder what the assistant coaches are thinking or feeling because he has COVID. And in order to practice and have really, really accurate empathy, you have to take it a step further. You have to be able to remove your personal thoughts and your feelings from the situation. You can't assume that the people, the coaches, the football players that we're talking about in this example, think or feel the way you do. And it is not a natural skill to remove yourself completely from a situation and observe it. It takes practice. And the more that you can practice this and the better that you can get at it, the more successful that you're going to be in life. Now, before we jump headfirst into design think and keep talking about this, I want to give you some examples of some things that are happening. Empathy is going to be the #1 job skill in your career, the #1 in your career paths. And we know this already. About a year and a half ago, Google did a study within their organization, and they wanted to find out what job skills were really prevalent inside the organization, what was needed, because they wanted to be able to train their employees better. and they wanted to be able to recruit better. This huge study, thousands of responses, and when the responses come back as to what job skills were the most important at Google, intuitively, we would probably think that tech skills would be at the top of the list, but it wasn't. Actually, soft skills ranked at the very top, and empathy was right up there. So even to work at Google, empathy is going to be your #1 job skill. I'm assuming that most people who are in this class have a management major. And if you have a management or a business major, you're thinking you're going to be in some type of leadership role in your career. And I hope you are. But in order to be an effective leader, you have to have empathy. You can't lead people if you don't know how they feel or think. You also can't be a good team member and work in teams if you don't have empathy, because you never take the time to see how your teammates are thinking or feeling. And you also cannot be a good entrepreneur until you are able to practice empathy on a high level, because you cannot understand the problems your potential customers are having, and you also can't solve them. So I'm telling you now, empathy is the most important skill for you to develop throughout the rest of your lifetime. So just practice. In doing all of this, we've gone through observation, practicing empathy, and coming up with solutions. And you've practiced this a lot in my classes. And then what we're doing right now is looking at those solutions and evaluating them to see if they're entrepreneurial opportunities. Okay? And so once we do that and we choose one, we know our value proposition, taking it back to the business canvas here, and we know our customer segment. We can write the value proposition. And then what we now know also is this is just a really educated guess. This is just our hypothesis. Hypothesis 1. And if you remember from 386, what we have to do at this point is begin a customer discovery process. And customer discovery is made up of 4 things. The first one is the customer validation. So we go through customer validation and we ask questions and find out if our customer segments are really the ones that want this solution, and we find out if our solution is something they really value. After doing customer validation, we make some changes to our customer segments if needed, and we also change up our value proposition. But you guys should be really skilled at doing that by now. So we kind of are caught up with 386, 387, and where we are. So let's start to introduce all of the concepts of design think. Now, I've already told you this is very prevalent in the corporate world today. It's very prevalent in entrepreneurship. It's very prevalent in makers labs, places where innovation really occurs. And it is a very methodical way to go from empathy, identifying the problem, all the way through testing the innovation. I went through everything we just talked about to kind of calm you down, to let you know that you know much more about the design process than you realize. So the design think process is made up of 5 steps. The 5 steps are empathy, define, ideate, prototyping, and testing. Now, empathy is just what you think it is. It's everything that we've learned so far, and that is where we look around and try to identify problems that need to be solved. Empathy is the key. The design think process is human-centered and revolves around understanding how people feel and providing things for them that give them gains or relieve their pains. Back to the value proposition. Once we figure out what people are feeling, then we can define the solution we're going to provide for them. You already know how to do this. What we're doing in 387 is learning how to be more creative so that we can think of multiple solutions to provide for our customer segments. And this is what we call ideate. We want to think outside the box. We want to be super creative, super innovative. And And like I said, this is really what we touch on in 387 for you, is teaching you how to think outside the box, to be just very innovative and creative. Now, the ideate process you'll see in your notes there is a very particular process that's called ideate. And what this might look like is we would sit around and we would have like a ton of Post-it notes. And once we said, hey, this is the problem that people are feeling, how do we want to solve it? Then we would start a brainstorming session. And people would just throw out anything that you think of. Nothing is too outlandish, nothing. Because if your brain connects it, there's something inside there that maybe we can't articulate, but something has connected it. So let's just go with it. And we would make tons and tons of these little Post-it notes with just blurbs all over them and put them up on a big board. And when we were finished, we would read all of them and we would start to see that there are themes. So then we would start to group our Post-it notes into different groups based on themes. If you think about when we do icebreakers in 3D6, I would ask you all to answer a specific question, and then I would ask you, did you hear any themes? And you guys got really good at answering that. It's kind of the same thing here. Throw out those brainstorm ideas, put them all on Post-it notes, and then we would have themes. As we looked at those themes, then we could start to evaluate them to see which ones we felt like would create the best entrepreneurial opportunities for us. And once we narrowed it down and used our process of choosing a good opportunity, which ones look valuable, which ones look durable, timely, attractive, then we could move on to creating a prototype of that product. It might be a prototype of the service, it might be a prototype of a website, of an actual product, but we would create something that we could take to some customers to let them test it. And as we do this, we introduce a few more terms here for you to think about in the design process. And what we want to know is the prototype that we're creating, is it going to be desirable? Is it going to be viable, meaning a good business opportunity for us? And also, is it feasible? Does the technology exist to create this product, or can we create the technology to create this process? So we're introducing a few more things to help us evaluate the actual opportunity and the product itself. Now, once we create our prototype, we move to another level in the customer discovery process. And here we get to something called product validation. And what we're going to do in product validation is take this prototype to some potential customers that match our customer segments and let them test it. Now, with this process, we have to be very open-minded. We have to be coachable, and we have to be willing to listen to the feedback that we get from our customers. And we have to be willing to make changes to the prototype. The key to being successful long-term is having a growth mindset and a coachable attitude. So then we take back their feedback and iterate. Iterate the prototype, make it better, make it fit more of what they want, and then we give it back to them and we test it again. And we go through this circular process as many times as we need to until we feel comfortable that our product is ready to go to market. And this is how the design think process works. Now, like I said, I told you guys, you know more about this than you understand. But the key here is it's easy to have a prototype and to test it, prototype and test it. This is the difficult part. And you guys have been practicing this in 3D6 and 3D7 already. You just need to really get this down pat. Stop starting here. This is not a start spot. Stop starting here. This is not your start place. This is your start place. I have too many entrepreneurs who come to me and say, I got a really good idea. I got an idea of creating this paper clip as a hair bow. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So let's back it up and tell me, what problem are you solving? And then they're stumped. They're like, what? And inside, every time, it's like, I feel terrible because I don't want to be the person that steps on their butterfly, but you can't start with the idea. A lot of you freak out when you found out you had limited resources to solve a problem in your last project. However, if you did that, then that told me you were starting here and you had a chasing mindset. And you didn't start here and use a stretch mindset. Now, everything that I'm talking to you about with having empathy, with having a stretching mindset, with being creative, these are all learned skills that anyone can develop. But you have to work your mind out the same way that you have to work your body out if you want it to be healthy. This takes practice, and you can do it all day, every day. As I told you here, just look around. Anything, whatever you're reading, what you're watching on TV, the people who are around you, remove yourself and start to practice your empathy skills. Be creative. Think outside the box. I've given you guys some skills to help you start to open up that part of your mind. Now, no one stays in that creative mindset all of the time. No one does. The key is being able to flip the switch to get into that mindset when you need to. So a really good way of getting into that mindset is through guided mind wandering. And you guys read about that. You got a test about it. And here's a really good way to do that. So the next time you need to click in and you need to get into that creative mindset, which is coming very soon because you've got your next project, do a guided mind wandering. And I want you to think about this. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to picture the quad on a bright sunny day. The temperature's perfect, absolutely perfect. And you see a group of school age, elementary school age kids, probably, let's say kindergarten to second grade, playing out on the quad. And they've got some sticks. That's all they have. There's 3 or 4 of them out there playing, and they have sticks. And I want you to think about what those kids are doing. What are those kids doing with those sticks? And I want you to mind wander about it. Think about all the different games they'll play. Think about all the different ways they'll use those sticks as toys. Maybe as a bat to hit an acorn. Maybe as something to chase a squirrel. Think about the many, many ways that you used to use a stick when you were playing. And as you do that, you're going to start opening up your inner child, which opens up the creative portion of your brain. Do that for about 5 minutes. And when you're finished, then remember, oh yeah, I can take any item that exists and I can turn it into something else. I need you to get out of your functional fixedness state and quit thinking about products for what they were designed and think about the many, many ways you can use them. Then you can start to be super creative. Now, that is a lot of what I want to talk to you about today. I want you to really take some time and think about the design think process, to start to review those slides. We're going to talk much more about it before you have your next exam. But right now, I want to stop this and I want to start talking about your next project because it's there, it's ready, and it's a quick turnaround. You've got to be ready by Tuesday to do this. And this is one of my most favorite projects of the whole semester. This one always turns out to be the most fun. You guys are going to have to start using your skills again and everything that you did for items that start with A, but we're going to incorporate a little bit more with this one. So let me move this on over here. We're going to get to the whiteboard. Oops, I went just a bit too far. And we're going to talk about the value proposition and customer segments again. Now, if you have read what you have to do, you're going to realize that there are a lot of corporations out there that did not go through the design think process. They just didn't. They made a product and didn't test it properly and took it to market, and guess what? That product flopped, completely flopped. And it's very unfortunate, very unfortunate. And what we're going to do is we're going to take those products and we're going to adjust. They either got the value proposition wrong or the customer segments wrong. You're going to take one of those products. I'm going to let you choose which one you want to do. Choose one, and you're going to have to either change the value proposition or change the customer segments, or maybe change both. And you're going to have to pitch it and you're going to have to sell it. You can't change anything about the product, nothing about the product. And you're going to have to deliver a 3-minute Shark Tank worthy pitch. Now I'm excited to see what you guys do. I'm going to stop this video here because it's pretty long. And I'm going to make a second one that talks just about what you're going to have to do inside your project. Now, I'm really excited about this. It's a quick turnaround. I want you to be creative and I want you to have fun. Remember, the design think process that we talked about today is very important for you to understand and internalize. You have to learn how to practice empathy, and you've got to learn how to be creative. You've got to have a growth mindset, and you got to be coachable so that you can keep making iterations inside your brain to get better and better. If we're talking about ourselves, if we're talking about a product, a prototype, whatever it is that we're talking about, and get much better always. I'm going to, if you have any questions, guys, I don't hear from you a lot, which worries me. Set up a meeting with me, email me, let's talk. You don't have to be out there by yourself, not at all. Enjoy this next project, and I look forward to seeing your pitches. Have a fantastic time with this project.